Voice of America presents. She said to me, war. And I just thought to myself, I just lie down for a little bit with closed eyes. I can't sleep really, but just not to get up right away with this word. Something is happening to me. I tear up very easily. And she said to me, do you understand that it's going to change something? I said, yes. Maybe we'll take off the pictures from the walls, or maybe your diaries will take them too. At 11 o'clock, we took the last flight. So what's going on? Am I an immigrant? So if you can write poems after Auschwitz, then do. Work, friends, slippers. I don't know when I will be able to do it here in your country. Something like that. A steel frame, it's going to be an explosion. End. Dmitri Krymov, theater director, artist, stage designer, teacher. 25th of February, Dmitri Krymov flew from Moscow to New York to stage Cherry Orchard at American Theater Wilma. Show was planned before the war. May I ask a question? Anna Nilsson, correspondent. Where did the war catch you? We were in Moscow in the morning. My wife, Inna, she got up and looked at the news before me and she said, oh my God, awful. Since it was awful, 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 she kept saying, and I thought that I will keep lying down. I can't really fall asleep again, but just not to wake up with this word, awful. And then a few minutes later when I got up, she told me it's a war. They started it. And at that point I couldn't even imagine the scale. It was on the 24th of February. I had a show in the night. We revived Boris Godunov. It was more than a year when the show wasn't on, so I went to the rehearsal. My students came from some rally. Thank God nobody was caught. We were sitting around, we were just saying goodbye to each other. They were kind of seeing us off, because the next morning we were supposed to fly away, and at 11 a.m. We took the last comfortable flight from Moscow to New York. Before leaving the country, I know that you wrote a letter against the war. I don't quite remember, was it before we flew or after? I remember this mise-en-scene where we were, myself and my wife were sitting on the couch. They sent us this letter to sign. I changed some words, and I suggested to change some words, and then of course I signed it. I think it was the next day, because when you fly here to America, you don't lose time, you arrive on the same day, almost the same time you left. Literally, it was probably right after the plane or before the plane, before we took the plane. Next day, before signing the letter, did you pause? There was a pause because my wife Inna asked me, something is happening to me. I just tear up very easily. It's really embarrassing. But she asked me, do you understand that it's going to change something when you sign? And I said, yes. She didn't want to stop me, she just asked. She kind of understands more in life than I do. It's not that she didn't want me to sign. Actually, she signed the next letter together with me. But no. Pause. What kind of pause it can be, you know? War is war. I don't really sign a lot of letters, but you sign those letters that you simply cannot help signing. And in this case, it was clear. It's like you must sign it. And then listen, you know, what is it, you know, to sign or not to sign? It really sounds so little. You don't know what big is. What to do in this situation. I don't know, you know, I go to rehearsals, doing the show, and I'm kind of asking myself, is it the expression of a person that this person is against the war, or it's a help to someone who thinks the same way? Is it? And that question is in my head. I don't know. Yesterday I was thinking about it the whole day. How were you packing? I know that you didn't really have a lot of proper plans for like fleeing and all that. Oh, we actually had a return ticket. On the 14th we had the opening, on the 15th we were supposed to go to New York, then on the 17th and 18th we were supposed to fly back, then there was the Golden Mask Festival in Moscow. I had 2 shows. They were nominated for 11 nominations and 9 nominations. And the second one was for 6 nominations. There are 2 different companies of actors. So it would be great to be together at the point. And then 2 days after that, I was supposed to have rehearsals in Fomenko Theater. And my schedule was pretty busy, and I had several shows on different stages of work. And I would be like a grasshopper, you know, jumping from one theater to another. And I was making sure that, you know, those shows wouldn't be crossing with each other. So Ina was telling me that, and complaining that I wasn't planning any holidays between those jumps from theater to theater. So now the plan was to go back. From what I understand, you didn't really pack up all things you wanted. On your desk you had your plans and stuff. Actually, we didn't really have time to pack up. I probably spent like an hour, maybe 20 minutes actually pack up very quickly. We thought that we would go back, and even now we had somebody coming from Moscow when we could have gotten an extra suitcase with some stuff, and she told me, my wife told me, you know, maybe we should ask them to take off pictures from the walls and maybe your diaries to bring them here. And I said no. No. I want all those things to wait for me there. When all this hell ends and we'll come back. I really believe in that, otherwise it's impossible to live. So how it's supposed to be, you know, I bring the picture of mother and father and I put it here. What the hell? So who am I? Am I an immigrant? You know, to put these pictures here and, you know, to make my home here? No, it's my home is there and it's going to be waiting for me. Who are you? What is your definition of yourself? No, no, I'm not an immigrant. Somebody said it and it kind of shook me. I don't know. I'm a human being, I hope. The question is what human acts you need to make to have the right to be called a human being. I just read Grossman's Life and Destiny, and what's the difference? You know, life is kind of flowing, and the destiny is built by a person. And it's built by the person with person's decisions. And the thing that I'm here, it's not a decision. It's I happen to be here by chance. And I look at people in Moscow, my friends who are there and who are tormented with what's going on there and what decisions they need to make. Actors don't know what to do, you know, they're losing their profession, and artists the same, you know, because they have mothers, fathers, families, children, where to go, you know, where to find the money to go. So we are here for some reason. It's like a joke, you know, kind of somebody gave us this gift, you know, it's just kind of gift. And everybody's saying, yes, of course, it's a gift, but you know, this kind of gift, I don't know if I took it or not. But anyway, to imagine myself walking through the streets and seeing this Z letter on the buildings, I didn't really make that decision, but you know, you need to make the further decision what to do, why you're here, what you're bringing with you here. Since you don't have a place to work here, so I was proposed to work, you know, things that I usually invested in my work. This whole range of feelings that I found back in Russia, feelings that I would perceive and invest in my work. Maybe this could be done here. Yes, I'm in a different place, but somehow you continue carrying this, you know, like a bee, you know, a bee produces honey, and you kind of pick it up from different fields. But that's part of your organism, of this bee organism, to produce this honey. You know, you kind of fighting with this flag for being a bee against those wasps, something like that. You know, that's your function as a bee. You know, bring honey. And this is, you know, this is the thoughts I have. They're not kind of formed yet. So what's happening? Not there in the war. I keep watching the news all the time. But what's happening in general? Because what's happening is it's a destruction. Destruction of the country, of a human being in Russia. Just destroying people in that country. So, and there is this, you know, definition of conscience, and you know, a Ukrainian nation is been rising, and Russian nation is destroyed. Some people today, they feel that those who speak Russian, this Russian language is like a sign on the sleeve. Do you feel it? No, I don't. Because when I see how in Ukraine they remove Pushkin's monuments and or they draw Z letter on his monuments, but you know, Pushkin with his life, with his blood, with his art, with his works, he paid for his purity in the history. And what's happening now is not a consequence of Pushkin's presence in the history. No, I'm doing the cherry orchard. And there is this character Yasha in the play. And they say he's a bastard. He's a jerk. And Valia is saying, I saw this jerk. And he spoils and seduces the maid. And when they say his mother is there, and he says, I don't want to see her, and fears this old servant. He's locked up in the house and left in the house and forgotten the house because of Yasha, because he was supposed to do that. He was supposed to take care of this old man. So what happened in Russia? This is Yashas who took over the country. So Yasha is very fertile, So after the 1917, there are lots of these Yashas in Russia. Since all other people were doing their own things. In other words, doctors were healing people, artists were drawing, and musicians were playing. But these guys, they were building that state. And what we have today, this is like this boil kind of poked. And this Yasha who don't respect their mothers, and they have nothing of value in their life. I don't know why. I don't know why it's happening. But in our country, for some reason, it happened. These mushrooms took over the forest. So then a question to you. So what do you think? Is there a collective responsibility? And is it the same as collective guilt? As they say, and I read that Russian intelligentsia always feels guilty that, people live in poverty and all other things. I wouldn't say that I don't feel myself guilty, but if I felt guilty that Putin came in power, no, I don't feel that I'm guilty. I lived before Putin. There are some other swindlers running the country, but they were given an opportunity to do my things. My father worked in the theater. My mother was writing articles. I also worked in theater, drew paintings. A feeling of guilt, what I was supposed to do, to go to the politics, to protest in some way. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that everybody has to do that. Stanislavski, for example, didn't go to rallies. He carried his belief that he is doing the most important thing in his life. He carried it through all the horrors that he had, when his family was executed and many other things. For me it was very difficult to imagine him in a rally. Was he a fighter? He was a fighter because he just was. Maybe it sounds a bit strange, but he was, and he continued doing his things, and many people were not allowed to, but he was. Some people wanted to do, don't do it. Some genetic scientists, they were not allowed, but he was allowed for some reason. So you're trying to find some examples in the past, right? But how else, you're trying to hook up to something, for example, when you swim somewhere and you can see the wreckage, and this wreckage kind of helps you to stay on the surface. And Pushkin helps me, he helped me before and now. He lived and he wrote. It was very difficult for Pushkin. He, especially the last years, he lost his humor. And actually he was shot because he lost humor. He had such a light humor, it was like an armor, and bullets were just were not hitting him, and finally they kind of got him with all this money, with his with jealousy to his wife, and he couldn't avoid them. He couldn't go away and write. And he lost his humor, and bullet got him. He didn't have that shield, the one that Ukraine is asking for, to have no fly zone, close the sky. They took it away from him, and if he still had this humor, he wouldn't be caring much about, that somebody's courting his wife or whatever, whatever, do, flirt with her. She will leave you anyway.
Как вы относитесь к дискуссии, что все разговоры о русской культуре
What do you think about these talks when they say that all talks about Russian culture should be cancelled while people are killed? How can you cancel yourself for the time that people are killed? So how do you see it?
Виновата ли в этом русская культура? Она ли породила чудовище?
Is Russian culture guilty in that?
Нет, ну конечно же нет.
No, of course not.
Ну, я не знаю. Да нет.
No.
Как она виновата?
How can it be guilty?
Как она виновата? Она просто, ну,
It's a great culture.
Я даже не уверен, что это ее функция.
So it didn't manage it, but I don't think it's its function to manage it somehow.
Из яиц родились вот эти ихтиозавры. Я не уверен, что это она должна.
These eggs they hatched and these dinosaurs came out of them, but it's not culture's fault. The country is so big. There are always two countries in the country. The one Decembrist, and the others are the other part of the country. This is where Akhmatov and Pushkin are the poets. Culture in Pushkin, it's not their fault because it doesn't cover everything. Actually, it's an interesting question. Maybe it would save the situation, but it was just a part of many, very little people. I very doubt that those people who are doing all these atrocities in Ukraine, I don't think that they're aware what culture is at all. Listening to these intercepts that we have heard here, when they do all these atrocities. Them and culture, they're two different things. They think that they don't need it. The more people know those laws of culture and respect culture, they need to want them, because actually it helps you to live and not to steal washing machines. Culture doesn't allow to do that. And I would say that culture was despised by them. Culture wasn't part of them. You can't really put culture on pause. I don't know, it's like something bad happened in the night, and you say, so let's just not have the sunrise, because something bad happened in the night. No. Then your answer to the question, remember, there was this German philosopher Theodor Adorno, and he said that after Auschwitz, it's barbarianism to write poems after it. No, it's not. It's not barbarianism. It's not. Maybe it's very difficult, and maybe you can do it. Actually, it depends on a person. If you can write, write. If you can write poems after Auschwitz, then do. Or draw a picture. What about Picasso with Guernica? Think about it. He drew it not after Nuremberg tribunal. He did it before, and how he actually advanced the arts. So for this he was supposed to get a Nobel Prize, because at that point when your guts are twisted from compassion and suffering, and this painting is not just an act of respect and compassion to these people, but actually this painting moves the whole art in the future. It's like a missile, but it's not good to compare it with a missile, but it's like a multi-layered work, which was done when everything was still very hot. Do you read news? Do you write news? Do you watch news? Yes, I do it all the time, all the time. Morning, day and night. It's something that's very necessary, you just do it. Otherwise you get lost if you don't read the news. I want to wake up with a different feeling and not to try to grab my phone for news.
Сейчас в американском театре Уэлма
Right now in American theater Welma, you are staging The Cherry Orchard, a Russian director, a Russian play.
Вы могли бы дать какой-то контекст своих ощущений?
Could you give a context of your feelings and what the play is about? So my feeling is, I have a great company of people with their compassion and engagement, and they're just great actors. And I cast them. Every morning I would come to the rehearsal since I read all this news, and probably they did the same. And I don't watch American television because I don't really speak language that well, but they knew a lot. They never even told me that we know. It was such an incredible compassion. There was a scene, and right in the climax of the scene, an actor comes to the audience and says, I want to explain something to you so that you would understand what's going on. It's a game between us. This actor says, my student in Moscow, when the war began and the week after the war, she had in such horrible state, and she was saying, so it's awful. She was buying tickets to leave and then was returning those tickets. And then she went to the show that I staged there with some other company. And then she called me up and said, Dmitri, do you know? I realized why we need theater. For 2 hours I stopped being afraid. And I gave these words to the actor when he comes forward to the audience. And he says to the audience, we just want to forget for 2 hours that the war is going on. So here we have this Russian director, and he kind of tells the audience our talks. So how I was telling them that how I call my friends in Kharkov, and how they sit there in the basement and listening to Mozart. And they're watching some of the snippets of my show that was recorded. Just not to go crazy. So you have your people on both sides of the border. Well, actually, part of my family managed to leave. I read how Ukrainian woman is recalling what happened when a shell flew in their house. And it was kind of flash back in her imagination. And her mother was frying eggs, and then she was carrying that frying pan to her daughter, and then when they heard the shell coming and this bomb coming, she threw away this frying pan with the eggs, and it covered her daughter. But just imagine this, how this frying pan is flying, and these eggs are flying in the air, and the mother is covering her daughter, and all that, it's kind of comic in a sense, But I hope that everything that we have funny stuff, you know, that we have in the show. So it's today's tragic and funny all together.
Про что спектакль?
What is the show about?
Мы говорим о вишневом саде.
We're talking about the cherry orchard.
Меня интересовал просто момент, когда вот человек, скажем, застегивает пуговицу.
I was always curious about this moment when a person is kind of buttoning his shirt and somebody called them, and the person says ah, and that's just moment, you know, and when a person is, you know, tying their laces, shoelaces.
Вот я даже сейчас фильм снял, там человек завязывает.
I made this movie and a person is tying up his laces, shoelaces. So this is what the show is about. They don't know what. The person doesn't know what, and they kind of have this kind of what, and just, you know, a moment before the war, one day before the war. There are no hopes, and it's kind of, you know, in this there is this idea that everything will be fine. You know, that life before this awful things, you know, this string that was broken, that's about that's frying pan that's flying, you know, and the eggs are flying, you know, mother is running, and then just, you know, this steel shot, and the end. And this is just formulated what the show is about. How it was superimposed on the time, it's amazing, you know. Chekhov has a encoded tragedy of life. How it's going to end, you know, if it ends, something different will be there, you know. It's a feeling that life is short, and it can end.
Скажите, а после вашего отъезда Бориса Годунова в Москве?
After you left, Boris Godunov, your show was closed in Moscow. Not really closed.
Его не то чтобы закрыли, он вообще сделан в музее Москвы.
It wasn't closed. We staged it in the Museum of Moscow. That's the place where we did that. And there is this actor, Dmitri Pevtsov, who came to see the show. He's a very big patriot today. And just to give you an idea, he had a small role in my father's show in Taganka Theater. So now he's a deputy of State Duma, and he's Patriot of Patriots. And my producer told me, you know, after the show, the guy didn't applaud. And then 2 days later, he made a statement somewhere in the Ministry of Culture, and he said that this show shouldn't be there, so there was some disrespect to the coffins that was shown in the show. Something like that, some stupid stuff, he said. But he did. And the Museum of Moscow said that they're not ready to support this show. Do you have students in GITIS, in the Russian Academy of Theatre Arts? How are you going to continue to work with them? So right now we're doing through Zoom. Some of them are in Tbilisi, in Georgia. We get together on Zoom and do our classes. So, in other words, so you have your group in GITIS, and instead of this Moscow location, the group is in Georgia, Tbilisi. So there are two people in Yerevan, Armenia. Two of them are in Tbilisi. Tomorrow morning, those two from Armenia, they'll go to Tbilisi, and some of them are in Moscow. So we get together on Zoom and we do our work on Tolstoy and Gogol. So what about Gittes administration? How they see it? I actually don't know how to answer this question. So far, no how. They didn't say anything. I didn't talk to the dean of the school, with Grigory Zaslavsky, and he didn't call me and he didn't say, Dmitri, unfortunately we need to fire you. Maybe he will call me at some point. Today when I was going for the interview, I thought, so what I'm going to do after that, maybe I'll tell my students, let's just have classes no matter what, because, now I'm responsible for my students. It doesn't matter where we are, if I return, then we do it there. So, but while I'm here, of course, I'm yours, and let's work. So you see, we're working with Tolstoy and Gogol right now. In Ukraine, they show Gogol's monument that is covered with sex, with sand and plywood, to protect it. And now we're doing Tolstoy and Gogol. It's a great thing, to understand all their work and, to kind of let it in. And we need to live sort of looking up at the oldest, not at your boss, not at your director, but at the oldest. I mean, our elderly. For me, the elderly, this is them. Pushkin, Gogol, Tolstoy, Bulgakov, Akhmatova. Them.
У вас есть ощущение, что начинается новая русская культура за рубежом, новое рассеяние?
Do you have a feeling that a new Russian culture begins abroad? Well, Chulpan Khamatova, this famous actress of Sovremenic theater, she left, and Latvian drama theater took her, and Hermanis, this director, will be working with her, and if they do a show with her, then it's going to be quite a rare thing, because, appearance of this actress on the Moscow stage, this is the continuation of Russian culture, and then it will continue in Latvia, in Riga. So what's the difference, So nobody remembers where Ivan Bunin wrote his famous novel. He wrote it in France, like I'm saying, Rachmaninov, Bunin, Shmelyov, Brodsky, there are like numerous of those people. This just, the Russian culture, just changing the stream, they put kind of a dam over it, but it will find a way. But actually, it's a great honor. I felt nauseous of these Olympic Games in 2014, not only because they were wearing this Russian traditional hats, and they were like first figure skating, and then back with their trainers, and they would put this Russian traditional hats on them. It's just crazy, But at the same time, the Malevich and Kandinsky were also among those objects that they carried through the Olympics. So, what about the country? You can do it anywhere or only in Russia? I don't really know. That's for me, it's the second time. Once I did it in Yale University, and now here. Usually we just went on tour, and it's very different, what you do here from scratch and kind of to make it a homemade pastry. Yesterday I talked to one of my classmates, Nikita Tkachuk, and he recently was in Moscow. He watched everything that he could. We spoke a lot. He turned out to be a great audience. And yesterday I was doing, first thing I was doing, I was kind of looking back and looking at him, what was his reaction? Is it better or worse or the same, from what he saw in Moscow? If it's the same as in Moscow, then yes, of course, I can do things here too. However, your source is there. Here I don't really have this source. I can't really get it from here. I'm still, you know, absorbing it from Russia because, you know, I'm made of it. And what city you live in now? Are you going to be in New York? Yep. What decision did you make for yourself? I'll try to make a show from scratch. I really don't know. I don't want to declare anything. Yeah, for many years I taught in Yale drama, and I know many actors here. I have some ideas, you know, not, you know, just raise money and then do, you know, just do, you know, to get actors and do something and see. And, you know, have this lab with Dmitri Krymov. Many, probably not so much time passed, and maybe people just don't know that Krymov is in the West now. But, you know, I just didn't tell anyone yet that what I'm going to do. I don't really have work proposals here, but I'm not going to wait for them. It can be more stupid, you know, to wait. So I have to create things myself. You're not going to return to Russia. As soon as possible, when it's possible, I will do it right away. I will get in line firsthand. My friends and people whom I respect, they are there and they suffer. Well, since I'm here, I don't know how useful I can be there in Moscow. If I will be prosecuted for the words I say, you know, for what I do. You know, actors, they play what they're given, but director stages what he wants. And you stick out in some way. If you don't stick out, it's better not to do it. But right now, there, any sticking out is not welcomed. So why to go there and to do what? To do what? So I just want to understand, and every day I think about it. To do what? To do what? You know, I know where my sleepers are. Then the next thought is, so what's going to be next tomorrow? Tomorrow I'll go to rehearsal. To go to the rehearsal of one of my 4 or 5 shows that are in work now. So, and I will have to, I'll have to steer them in a certain way, you know, because of situations that's unfolding, you know, because I steered the show here because of what's going on, and everything that I have in Moscow, I will have to steer the same way. You know, given all this kind of this inflamed being that I have today, you know, so I can't just technically kind of continue working without taking into account what's going on. And I don't think it's possible now to do it there. And I'm sure that it's just impossible. I don't have a family there, you know, all our family died, and my son lives here in the US. Work, friends, slippers. Nevertheless, it's a great lure to me to go back. I will go right away as soon as it ends. When it's going to be possible to work, when I realize it's possible to work, I'll go.
запретом и уловкам этой гнуси, ну,
I
тут же
would,
поеду.
as soon as they don't have all these prohibitions and bans, I think, you know, when they keep screwing it, and at some point it simply bursts. I know that you finished your film that kind of ironically called Everything is Okay. Yeah, we almost finished it. It's just 5 last minutes of the movie are not shot yet, and it's supposed to be quite a long process of, you know, putting the sound on and color correction. All these technical things is very important. First, we need to finish shooting. Then it's gonna be done. It's also about that everything is okay. Yes, it's kind of a premonition, an anxious state. So you put this project on pause, right? No, I think they can finish it without me. So you're gonna be doing it like lectures with your GITIS students on Skype. There is a way to do it without me. Just it's my first film. It's extremely interesting business. Extremely interesting business to make films and to edit it. That's it. Your father, and I think every interview you have, he's mentioned. Your father is one of the greatest directors of the 20th century, Anatoly Efros. And I read this phrase in his books. You always have to hold a button in your hands, meaning his own artistic plan that director is supposed to work with tomorrow. So how to live without this button? You know, I'm trying to kind of find it, and this is what I was talking about. So I'm just like, I didn't know that you knew this quote. I very much understand it. You know, this button that I had, this is my schedule on the wall in Moscow, and it got ripped. And I don't have this button here. So now I need to create it, because I'm a tailor. So I need to sew and have this button in my hand. What do you feel sorry about the most that you left in Russia? Friends and audience. And I even thought that this show here, I would dedicate it to my Russian friends and audience, because many of them are saying, when are you going to do the next one? So I wanted to do this job first and, you know, finish it. And for me it would be interesting to see these faces who saw things I did before. And person's life, it's like a long series, you know. It's some sort of Möbius stripe. And I would give it to them when I finish this show, and I would give it to them so that they could see it. When I left theater, Sretinka Theater, in the School of Dramatic Art on the Sredinka street.
Ситуация была, ну, не такая кровавая, как сейчас
The
в
situation
государстве,
was not as bloody as it is
но
today in
такая
the country.
директриса, как бы, из этой
But the director, managing director of the theater, was from that
это сразу Запад другой,
flock.
законы
You know,
другие,
immediately when she
меняются,
came,
ужасно.
different laws,
Всем
different
тут.
smell
Но
in the
последний раз,
theater.
когда наш спектакль был, я
But when I had my
публикой
show
вышел, я
there the
говорю,
last time,
я
and
ухожу, я вас очень
I
прошу,
came to the audience and I said,
вы
I'm leaving, and I ask you,
будете, я надеюсь, будете в других театрах,
I hope you'll go to other
мои
theaters
спектакли идут.
and you see my
Приходите,
shows there, so
и
please come.
когда я выйду,
And when I
сделайте мне вот так, я буду
come
понимать,
out to you, and could you wave me,
что это
so
вы.
I will understand this is you.
И в какой-то момент вдруг в другом театре
And at some
часть
point,
публики вдруг так, знаете, уф,
part of the audience, you know, they waved at
вот
me
это мне
in a
очень
different
понравилось.
theater, and for me it was just amazing.
Потому что, к сожалению, это, наверное, очень узкий круг.
Because
А
sadly,
может,
it's
не к
probably
сожалению.
a very small
Но
group of people.
декабристов
Maybe it's
было
not
всего
sadly. You know,
ничего.
Decembrists, there
Ну,
were
не
not so
сравним,
many of them.
конечно, но вообще так аналоги помогают как-то
But you know, when
держаться.
you look at
Декабристов
some
было
other
всего ничего.
examples,
Все русское
it
население не знало,
helps you.
что вообще есть
So
декабристы.
Decembrists, there were not
Я
so many of
уверяю
them,
вас, они не
and
сочувствовали им.
all Russian people didn't know that they
Но
were
историю
there
двигают
at
эти люди.
all. But you know, those Decembrists, they
Поэтому,
move the
но они
history.
делают это для чего-то,
But they
как бы
do it for
для
something,
всех.
for everybody.
Вот мне часть этих всех, во всяком случае, часть
So, and that
очень не
part
хватает.
of those everybody, that's what I'm
Чем
lacking.
спасаетесь?
So how do you kind of save
Я
yourself,
придумываю
where you find the outlet?
новые постановки в голове.
I come up with new productions in my head.
Те я брать не хочу.
I don't want to
которые
take
там у
those
меня на
ones
стенке висят.
that
Во-первых,
I
я надеюсь
have there on my
вернуться и
schedule
доделать их
on
с
the
теми
wall
людьми, с
in
которыми
Moscow,
я
because I
начал.
do hope that I'll return and I will continue working on them.
И мне как-то не хочется. Во-вторых, неудобно просто это делать с другими людьми, хотя я уже
And I don't want to do that because, you know, I'm doing those shows with other people. And thirdly, you know, I did them in rep theaters with a fixed budget, you know, and all of it. So they were designed for special conditions, so to speak. So that's why I imagine new stories that would be applicable to here, to my new state. But to be able to leave my fingertip prints on these new works. Thank you.